In a world where relationships are often treated as the ultimate measure of success, it can be difficult to step back and see the value of walking alone. The Stoics remind us that the path to strength, clarity, and freedom often requires solitude. Choosing to stay single, at least for a period of one's life, is not avoidance. It is preparation. It is a choice to sharpen the mind, strengthen the character, and develop independence before entering any bond. To remain single is to claim time for yourself, to refine discipline, and to know your worth without external validation. For some people, relationships are the key to success, a way to find purpose, and a path to transformation. For others, the experience is much different. Relationships are not always the answer. Some individuals find that relationships are not for them, perhaps not yet, or perhaps not ever, and that is entirely acceptable. Everyone reaches their full potential and productivity in their own unique way. The decision to stay single is personal and subjective. I invite you to share your experiences in the comments section for community discussion. This video will explore 7 reasons why choosing to remain single can be a valid and empowering path, free from guilt, cultural expectations, or societal pressure. If staying single aligns with your nature and goals, it deserves the same respect as any other life choice. Each reason is not an escape from responsibility, but a direct way to cultivate self-command. Each chapter will show how singleness can be transformed into a season of growth, independence, and strength. The Stoics saw solitude not as loneliness, but as a chance to master the self. With this mindset, staying single becomes a deliberate strategy for living well. The Stoics taught that personal freedom and inner tranquility should guide our decisions. They emphasized mastering the self, understanding desire, and living in accordance with nature. These principles form the foundation of this discussion. Each chapter will focus on one principle and how it can be cultivated through a Stoic mindset. The reflections in this video come from experience, observation, and philosophical insight. The lessons are practical and drawn from direct analysis, not fictional stories. Let this be a guide for reflection, regardless of your current relationship status. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Space for Mastery. To live with excellence, you must reduce interference. Mastery in any area requires structured repetition, consistent effort, and sustained solitude. Without these elements, progress becomes unstable. Interruptions create gaps in focus. Emotional distractions reset mental momentum. Noise in the environment affects the quality of attention. The Stoics understood that focus is not something you can summon at will. It must be protected and practiced. Relationships introduce emotional dynamics that can pull you away from your process. Each discipline, whether intellectual, physical, or creative, requires immersion. It requires entering a mental space where thoughts are clear and progress is measured. This space allows for deep focus, reflection, and repeated refinement of technique. It is where skill becomes sharpened and effort transforms into mastery. Accessing this space consistently requires a certain structure around your life. That structure must protect time, energy, and attention. Without protection, the mental space becomes harder to enter. You become reactive instead of focused. Your rhythm breaks, and what was once a practice becomes a scattered effort. This structure is disrupted when your schedule is tied to another person. Even small interactions can pull your attention away from a focused state. Shifts in daily routine, shared responsibilities, and emotional conversations introduce friction. This friction may seem manageable at first, but builds into distraction. You can begin to lose the thread of your work. The mind drifts, pulled in different directions. That fragmentation slows momentum. It weakens the consistency needed to achieve mastery in any serious pursuit. Once the rhythm is broken, effort must be spent to regain focus. This recovery requires energy. The more frequently you are disrupted, the more energy you need to rebuild your momentum. This reduces efficiency. Instead of building steadily toward a goal, your effort becomes interrupted by emotional obligations or logistical compromises. This fragmentation stretches the timeline of development. It weakens your ability to measure progress accurately. When you are single, you build a system that reflects your priorities without interference. You set the terms of your day. You establish a hierarchy of importance and follow it without needing to explain or defend it. You decide when you begin, how long you work, how deeply you focus, and when you rest. This freedom to design your time gives you a direct connection between effort and result. You can refine your schedule based on actual feedback, not emotional demand. This leads to cleaner data, clearer outcomes, and a stronger sense of direction. You become more accountable to yourself. With no one else directing your attention, you sharpen your ability to make decisions based on reason and long-term vision. You are less prone to emotional swings that come from relational tensions or obligations. This autonomy does not isolate you, it stabilizes you. It gives you control over the environment needed for mastery to grow. You protect your hours, you reduce noise, you strengthen the feedback loop between work and improvement. Marcus Aurelius placed great value on solitude. He returned to it consistently because it created the conditions for self-examination. His writings reflect the clarity that comes from space and quiet. He saw thought as something that must be observed and trained. That training becomes difficult when life is filled with social or emotional clutter. The ability to return to a calm inner space is essential for any type of excellence. Without that space, thoughts stay surface level, reactive, or fragmented. In relationships, interruptions often come from well-intentioned sources, love, concern, conversation, but the outcome is still the same. Time is lost, focus is diluted. The deliberate rhythm of practice becomes a negotiation. When that rhythm is broken too often, growth becomes uneven. You start and stop. You revise without finishing. You analyze without executing. This slows the development of mastery and undermines confidence. Being single allows you to protect the rhythm that produces meaningful progress. You do not have to rearrange your goals around another person's needs or habits. You are not constantly shifting direction or pausing to explain yourself. You can go deeper into your practice. You can extend your concentration without having to break it. This deep work is where breakthroughs happen. It is where ideas mature. It is where real transformation takes place. Even in stable relationships, time must be managed around shared needs. Conversations require attention. Planning requires discussion. Emotions require availability. These recurring demands reduce the amount of uninterrupted space needed for deep focus. They fill mental bandwidth that would otherwise be used for critical thinking, reflection, or creation. These interactions, although well-intentioned, build cognitive load. They create layers of responsibility that take energy to maintain. This layer of shared emotional maintenance adds subtle friction to daily execution. The mind must constantly shift between internal clarity and external engagement. Each shift slows down transitions into deep work. Momentum breaks. Recovery takes time. The result is scattered energy. This reduces the quality and intensity of deliberate practice. Even short interactions can leave a residue of distraction. Focus then becomes something you have to rebuild rather than sustain. Managing another person's emotional landscape, even in peaceful conditions, still draws from your internal resources. When unexpected stress arises in the relationship, the energy drain increases. If disagreements occur, or if emotional needs shift, you may spend part of your day in emotional analysis or conflict resolution. This cuts directly into your available focus. The mental state required for mastery needs clarity, repetition, and steadiness. Relationship stress introduces variables that interrupt those requirements. In early or unstable relationships, this disruption intensifies. The need for reassurance, validation, or frequent connection becomes higher. The unpredictability of emotional responses creates tension in your mental environment. When the relationship becomes a central concern, your work becomes secondary. You find yourself preoccupied. Your thinking becomes reactive. You try to manage both your own discipline and the emotional temperature of the relationship. This dual burden creates fatigue. Fatigue from emotional regulation weakens your creative capacity. It shortens your ability to sit with hard problems or stretch into the edge of a new skill. Emotional tiredness makes you avoid complexity. You settle for easier tasks, delay important actions, or become less consistent. The inner force that sustains progress becomes depleted. This happens quietly, and it accumulates. The result is not dramatic failure, but gradual stagnation. The Stoic observes this pattern without complaint. They measure the demands of their life and make adjustments. They ask which inputs sharpen their clarity and which ones scatter it. They are not guided by sentiment, but by structure. Single life removes many inputs. This simplicity makes it easier to see patterns in your day. You see when your focus drops. You see which activities build momentum and which ones reduce it. You have fewer variables to manage. That makes your feedback more accurate. When you live alone, your actions reflect your true habits. You cannot explain away a distraction or delay. You are the only variable. That truth may be uncomfortable, but it is valuable. It lets you refine your process. It gives you a clean look at what you are becoming. The Stoic sees this feedback as a tool. They use it to realign, reset, and rebuild. You can build your day around your values. You can construct your schedule to reflect your priorities. You can isolate the exact hours when you are most productive and defend them with full strength. You can remove anything that drains energy without returning value. You are free to disconnect from inputs that cloud your attention. This design allows mastery to develop naturally. You reduce waste. You increase rhythm. Clarity allows you to eliminate friction before it accumulates. You set fixed boundaries that protect your deepest work. You organize your physical and mental environment to encourage deliberate repetition. You do not wait until burnout forces a reset. You make adjustments early. This consistency forms a reliable system. That system then carries you through difficult phases of your development. When your routine is centered around execution and not approval, you grow faster. You spend less time defending your decisions and more time refining them. You move with calm because your day follows a structure you trust. Your energy is used in work, not in explanation. Your actions match your goals. This steadiness builds identity. Morning becomes a checkpoint for alignment. You do not rush. You begin with intention. You create momentum before distractions have a chance to enter. Midday becomes execution time. You keep it protected. Evening becomes a review, an honest analysis of what worked, what fell apart, and where your attention drifted. This cycle sharpens self-awareness. Repetition trains your mind. It tells your body what matters. It turns scattered effort into focused motion. This is how a Stoic approaches progress, through measured cycles, intentional structure, and honest review. You are not shaped by outside moods. You are shaped by your daily rhythm. That rhythm becomes your way forward. Consistency turns your goal into identity. It removes doubt. You know who you are by what you return to. When your routines match your values, your life becomes clearer. There is no confusion about direction. Your time reflects purpose. Your work reflects character. Mastery is not a finish line. It is the state where your actions and values no longer conflict. The single life allows that alignment to grow without resistance. You encounter fewer emotional detours. You reduce the number of demands pulling on your focus. Your mind stays closer to its goal. Your energy stays inside your process. This is how clarity becomes strength. This is how the Stoic walks forward. Quiet, consistent, exact. Chapter 2. Energy reserved for purpose. To live with direction, energy must be conserved. Each task, goal, or effort draws from a limited well. Focus is not infinite. Mental stamina is not without limits. Physical energy must also be measured. When your resources are divided across too many responsibilities or relationships, your capacity to focus weakens. Even small emotional interactions require thought, reflection, and adjustment. Relationships, including healthy ones, demand effort. They include compromise, patience, and maintenance. These tasks use time and energy that could otherwise serve discipline, focus, or creation. They introduce emotional currents that require interpretation and response. Being single offers clarity. The line between what strengthens you and what distracts you becomes easier to see. You are not balancing two different expectations. You are not giving attention to conflicts that do not align with your values. You do not adjust your calendar to accommodate the emotional tides of another person. This creates space for a structured rhythm. That rhythm becomes predictable. That predictability supports consistency. You can direct your effort toward a single point. You are able to make long-term commitments to a skill, project, or practice without concern for misalignment. The energy saved from emotional adjustment is applied to inner development. The Stoics believed in effort directed by reason. They examined how each action aligned with natural order, truth, and virtue. They did not seek activity. They sought clarity in action. Energy to the Stoic was a limited force. It was something that could build strength or be wasted on vanity, complaint, or emotion. When that energy is conserved and guided with intention, growth becomes possible. When it is scattered, the result is fatigue without progress. Being single gives you the platform to observe where your energy is going. You can examine what you do each day and ask whether it moves you closer to your values or away from them. When you are not emotionally exhausted, you become more precise. Your mind is less clouded by distraction. Your thoughts stay closer to the task in front of you. Your decisions take less time because they follow structure instead of emotional drift. You know what matters. You are not constantly rethinking your direction to match another person's mood or preference. You are not redrawing your plans in response to emotional noise. You have a system in place and you follow it. Your goals are consistent because they are guided by tested judgment. You refine your process through repetition and reflection. You make small adjustments based on what works, not what feels urgent. You rely on habits instead of impulses. Each task has its place, and each action has a reason behind it. This removes the pressure of uncertainty. You no longer spend large amounts of mental energy weighing simple decisions. Your structure makes those decisions clear. As a result, you are more productive. You finish what you start. You recover from mistakes faster. You do not waste time explaining your reasoning or compensating for disrupted plans. Conflict recovery becomes rare because conflict is reduced. Without emotional tension, your focus is uninterrupted. You are less likely to be reactive. You are less affected by temporary moods. Your attention stays on your task. You spend less time returning to balance because you rarely lose it. You sleep deeper because your thoughts are not racing with relational concerns. You wake with purpose because your day is shaped by values, not by emotional unpredictability. Your schedule is not a negotiation. It is a deliberate design. This is not a dismissal of relationships. It is a direct look at their cost. Every human connection carries a requirement. It asks for attention, understanding, patience, and response. Even peaceful relationships introduce variables that must be managed. These variables affect your focus. They interrupt your rhythm. If your goal is to build internal stability, simplicity helps. Fewer emotional inputs create more space for deep, sustained effort. The single life offers this simplicity. It removes friction that slows progress. When you reduce emotional interruptions, your clarity increases. You can reflect without pressure to justify your thoughts. You are free to be honest in your analysis. You do not need to explain your priorities or argue for your time. Your schedule is shaped by your own reasoning. You become more aware of where energy is gained and where it is lost. You observe the results of your habits without distortion. You act from structure rather than from emotional reaction. The Stoics saw energy as a resource that needed protection. They studied how it was spent. They removed what distracted from virtue. They applied their effort to what served reason, character, and discipline. They avoided waste, not only in material things, but in thought and action. You can adopt the same practice. You can build your life around energy conservation. You can make choices based on purpose rather than comfort. Track your energy daily. Break the day into parts. Look at where your effort was focused. List the activities that gave you strength. List the ones that left you feeling depleted. Ask which tasks moved your life forward and which pulled you sideways. Include emotional inputs, conversations, interruptions, reactive thoughts. Identify which ones can be reduced or removed. Look for patterns that weaken your focus. Keep the habits that increase it. Protect the hours that matter most. Set limits on what does not belong in your process. Use solitude to restore balance. Let each day be a clean test of where your energy went and what it built. Make this reflection a discipline. Let your direction be visible in how you spend your hours. Let your values shape your schedule. The more precisely you measure your energy, the more clearly you see the results of your decisions. Chapter 3. Freedom to live by your own standards. A relationship often introduces negotiation. Choices are no longer fully yours. You consider the other person, their needs, and their lifestyle. This affects your freedom to act based on your own reasoning. What may seem like a small compromise can slowly grow into a pattern of constant adjustment. You begin to shape your actions around someone else's expectations. This creates friction between what you want to do and what you feel obligated to do. In many cases, even simple decisions become subjects of discussion. How you spend your money, how you organize your time, what habits you keep, and how you use your space all become shared matters. This can lead to tension, misalignment, or the erosion of your core preferences. The Stoic path emphasizes the ability to act from clear intent, free from external emotional influence. When decisions are filtered through the lens of another person's needs, the clarity of your own compass may begin to fade. When you are single, you have full authority over your daily life. You choose when to wake up, how long to work, when to rest, and what to focus on without interruption. You define your own rhythm. This rhythm allows for momentum. With momentum, growth becomes more predictable and focused. You are able to pursue your goals with consistency and without having to consult anyone else. This makes your actions more aligned with your long-term intentions. The Stoics valued autonomy as a necessary condition for rational action. They emphasized living by reason, not impulse or social expectation. Epictetus taught that we must stay focused on what is within our control. When no one else is involved in your decision-making, there is less emotional noise. You do not weigh every action against how it may be perceived or how it might affect someone else. You act because the action is right, not because it is required by another. This kind of clarity allows for self-respect to grow. Each time you follow your own principles, you build inner trust. You reinforce the connection between thought and behavior. This is difficult to achieve when your decisions are constantly influenced by the emotional needs of a partner. Many people make choices that satisfy someone else but leave their own standards behind. This creates internal friction. That friction weakens discipline. Being single creates space for disciplined autonomy. You build your schedule around your purpose. You develop habits that match your personal values. You are not required to explain or adjust them to accommodate someone else's desires or discomfort. You move through your day with less resistance. Your time becomes a protected resource. The fewer people involved in your process, the more energy you can apply to your own development. When shared goals enter a relationship, they often bring emotional trade-offs. You may end up sacrificing important routines or abandoning time blocks that serve your long-term growth. These changes are rarely examined with full awareness. Many people slowly adjust their lives to make someone else more comfortable. These adjustments feel like love or loyalty, but they can often come at the cost of clarity and personal excellence. The Stoic learns to act from principle. That means reviewing actions based on reason, alignment with values, and clarity of intention. It requires quiet reflection and the freedom to choose without emotional interference. Single life creates the best environment for this kind of focused integrity. Living single is not about rejecting relationships. It is a choice to preserve clarity. It is about reducing friction in daily life. It is about creating a space where your intentions guide your behavior without interference. Each action you take becomes more focused because it is aligned with a personal standard. You are not split between different emotional needs or daily compromises. You are free to prioritize your values and execute them without distraction. Without the requirement to adapt to another person's schedule, habits, or preferences, you gain the ability to create a rhythm that supports discipline. That rhythm becomes the foundation of your work, your growth, and your peace. Each day flows with fewer adjustments. You know what matters, and you apply your energy accordingly. This consistency strengthens your decision-making and improves your ability to respond rather than react. When you act without having to explain, defend, or compromise your path, your identity sharpens. The lines between who you are and what you do become clearer. The Stoics taught that the mind must be trained to move with reason. This training becomes easier when your life is not shaped by external emotional variables. Living single allows this internal training to take full form. You observe, evaluate, and adjust based on what is true, not what is emotionally expected. Each decision made in solitude reinforces your trust in your judgment. That trust builds self-respect. You do not need someone else to affirm your path. Your results, your habits, and your clarity speak for themselves. Progress becomes cleaner. Your values show in your routine. Your direction becomes stronger and more stable. Review your day each evening. Ask yourself if your choices were shaped by principle or pressure. Write down what you would have done differently. Reinforce your priorities by turning them into habits. Let each action become a reflection of your values. Set a weekly checkpoint to measure whether your routines support your personal standard. Keep that standard visible. Let it guide your structure. Chapter 4. Emotional clarity. Emotions are signals. They point to inner states, attachments, fears, and desires. They reveal what you care about, what you fear losing, and where your identity is tied too tightly to external things. Relationships often blur these signals. You respond to another person's tone, expression, or behavior. You absorb their energy. You adjust your mood without noticing it. In time, it becomes harder to know what feeling belongs to you and what feeling was borrowed. You begin to question whether your frustration is based on personal reflection or triggered by the emotional atmosphere of the relationship. The Stoics taught emotional discipline. They believed that before reacting to a feeling, you should pause and examine the judgment that produced it. Emotions were not dismissed, they were studied. The Stoics distinguished between the immediate sensation and the interpretation that followed it. They understood that the feeling itself is natural, but the meaning you attach to it and the behavior that follows is subject to reason. Seneca emphasized the importance of observing the initial impression and letting it settle before you decide how to respond. This delay between feeling and action is where self-control begins. That gap is where clarity is formed. Pausing allows you to evaluate. The Stoic does not rush to express emotion. They sit with it. They ask where it came from. They examine whether the emotion was shaped by a value, a fear, or a false belief. They do not aim to suppress it. They aim to understand it. This understanding allows the Stoic to respond with accuracy instead of impulse. Without this space, emotion leads thought. With it, thought leads emotion. This reversal strengthens character and reduces regret. When you are single, your emotional world is easier to examine. You are not balancing someone else's feelings with your own. You are not navigating two emotional states at once. What you feel belongs to you alone. This helps you detect patterns more clearly. You begin to see what triggers frustration, anxiety, joy, or boredom. You can trace these emotions to thoughts, beliefs, or unmet expectations. When there is no one to project onto, you become more honest in your evaluation. You do not seek to resolve emotions through someone else's validation. You do not outsource the job of emotional regulation. You learn to stabilize yourself. This builds emotional strength. You do not need to explain what you feel unless you choose to. You are free to observe, reflect, and adjust without external input. The result is deeper insight. You start to journal with more honesty. You record what you notice. You reflect on your assumptions. You catch your errors in judgment. These habits sharpen emotional perception. Clarity supports growth because it removes distraction. You do not waste energy managing reactions to someone else's behavior. You are not preoccupied with decoding another person's moods or proving your own feelings. You stay with your experience. You study it with discipline. This leads to precision. You no longer fear discomfort. You see it as a message. You ask what it's pointing to. You use it to identify attachments, expectations, or stories you are holding too tightly. When turbulence appears, the Stoic pauses. They examine the moment. They do not push the emotion away. They investigate its cause. They ask whether it reflects something real or imagined. They look for distortions in perception. They look for tension between what is and what was expected. Then they choose what to do. They do not let discomfort choose for them. The space between stimulus and response becomes their training ground. The single life gives full access to this method. You are not pulled into conversations that shift your focus. You do not spend your attention managing emotional friction. You are not required to interpret someone else's tone, respond to unspoken concerns, or adjust your internal pace to match external needs. This preserves rhythm. Your time is not broken by unexpected emotional needs. Your mental space is not filled by relational interpretations. You can observe a mood without being asked to explain it. You are free to experience a feeling without needing to justify it or suppress it for someone else's comfort. You can examine fear without pressure to resolve it quickly. You can let a thought mature in silence. You are not interrupted by questions, reactions, or emotional urgency. You have full authority over your emotional process. You decide when to look deeper, when to sit still, and when to act. This level of freedom allows you to become more honest in your reflection. You do not have to prepare your words for another person's emotional frame. You do not need to soften your self-analysis or guard your vulnerability. You are not required to balance compassion with truth while analyzing your thoughts. Your inner work becomes cleaner. The absence of relational urgency clears space for deeper questions. You learn to stay with an idea until it reveals its full weight. You are not rushed by emotional cycles that are not your own. When emotional urgency is removed from your environment, the pace of reflection deepens. You can return to the same problem across multiple days without distraction. You can test your thoughts slowly. You can observe your emotional patterns in the same conditions. This creates more reliable self-assessment. The progress is not disrupted by external emotional shifts. You stay grounded in your own work. Without emotional cross-currents, your internal signals are easier to detect. You notice when your attention breaks. You detect the origin of tension without projection. You do not shift focus to accommodate someone else's feelings. You are not pulled into reactive thought. You remain in your own structure. You feel what is there. You name it. You trace its path. You test its source. You are free to let it pass or hold it longer without pressure. This practice builds self-trust. You know that your response is based on judgment, not obligation. You do not depend on someone else's reactions to verify your decisions. You develop emotional resilience without leaning on emotional dependency. You build patience. You develop the habit of sitting with discomfort until it becomes clear. You build confidence by surviving tension without running from it. This kind of clarity is difficult to maintain when your emotional energy is divided. Shared emotional space requires attention. It introduces rhythm that is not fully yours. It redirects energy toward maintaining balance between two minds. That effort, though meaningful, limits your ability to remain anchored within your own process. The single life removes this demand. It leaves more attention for your own patterns, beliefs, and corrections. It also creates emotional neutrality. You are not rejecting emotion. You are not suppressing it. You are practicing awareness without identity. You watch emotion enter and leave. You learn from it. You do not let it direct your conduct without reflection. You separate the feeling from the decision. You use the message and release the tension. This posture is built in solitude. It grows best in a quiet space with no demand for performance or reassurance. This space helps you build your emotional architecture. You test your values through your reactions. You ask whether you're acting from principle or fear. You become more familiar with what peace actually feels like. You become less interested in emotional noise and more skilled at choosing emotional focus. This shapes your inner life with precision. Start a practice of tracking your emotions. When you notice tension, pause. Name the feeling. Ask what thought came before it. Identify the belief tied to that thought. Ask whether that belief is grounded in truth. Write this down. Track what you discover across days and weeks. Notice the patterns that repeat. Replace untested beliefs with clear observations. Train your mind to expect clarity, not certainty. Let your judgment replace emotional drift. You do not need complex rituals. You need consistency. The act of observing and writing sharpens thought. It turns emotional reactions into learning. It gives structure to internal change. Each time you do it, your mind becomes stronger at catching distortions before they influence action. You become more accurate in your choices. You reduce regret. You strengthen inner alignment. Emotional mastery is not about control. It is about clarity. It is about developing the ability to witness your emotions without being overtaken by them. It involves identifying what is real within the emotion and what is a result of unchecked interpretation. It means letting the emotion arise, acknowledging it, and guiding it with reason. This process becomes more accessible when you live without constant emotional interference. Living alone gives you the stillness required to sharpen this internal skill. It gives your mind the space to reflect on its patterns without being pulled by the reactions or needs of another. The single life offers you full responsibility for your inner world. You are not working to understand your emotions and someone else's at the same time. You are able to focus on one source, your own thoughts, impressions, and responses. You begin to see emotional states as part of a landscape. Some rise suddenly and leave just as quickly. Others linger and reveal deeper roots. In solitude, you can study these patterns. You begin to understand the emotional cycles you move through and what triggers them. You recognize the early signs of a rising emotion before it takes shape. This anticipation allows you to respond with calm. This form of mastery does not dull your experience. It sharpens it. Your awareness becomes more precise. Your language for emotion becomes clearer. You do not reject emotion, but you do question its direction. You apply your mind to evaluate whether the emotion is tied to your principles or driven by impulse. This balance of presence and restraint grows more stable when there are fewer external emotional currents. The single life is not empty. It is full of clarity, presence, and structure. It is full of the quiet repetition that strengthens awareness. You are given uninterrupted access to your own thought patterns. You are given the time to test responses and refine your understanding. You build a steady mind by returning to yourself each day without distraction. You begin to rely on your internal judgment instead of emotional compensation. You become your own mirror. You do not wait for someone else to reflect your state back to you. You examine your own posture. You check your own tone. You assess the gap between what you feel and how you act. That practice becomes the foundation of emotional intelligence. In solitude, the depth of your awareness expands. You do not escape feeling. You learn how to live with it wisely. This emotional strength is formed through repeated observation, journaling, and alignment. It is not a reaction to pain. It is a skill built in calm. The single life provides the condition where this skill can take root. It gives you the space to build a mind that can support itself, adjust itself, and stand without leaning on another. Chapter 5. Focus without distraction. Distraction is one of the most common obstacles to growth. It removes you from the present task and scatters your attention across concerns that are often trivial. Distraction makes it difficult to follow through on deep work. It introduces interruptions that delay progress and weaken momentum. The Stoics viewed attention as a resource. They understood that the ability to remain focused was part of virtue, discipline, and strength. Single life reduces the number of distractions. You are not managing emotional tension. You are not monitoring your tone to prevent unnecessary conflict. You are not editing your words in real time to avoid being misunderstood. You are not splitting your time between personal focus and relational maintenance. You are not syncing your rhythm with someone else's priorities or negotiating how your plans impact another schedule. This creates space. That space allows you to concentrate fully on one path. You stay in your own lane. You follow your own structure. Your full attention can be directed toward one goal without emotional interference or compromise. You set the length of your focus session. You decide when to begin and when to stop. This independence leads to deeper mental engagement. It improves the quality of your output. It sharpens your awareness. Focus is not a talent. It is a trained state. It develops through deliberate repetition. You enter it by removing noise. You sustain it by building routines that protect attention. Each time you reach that level of depth, your ability to return to it becomes stronger. Each cycle of deep work strengthens your mental endurance. Distraction breaks that cycle. Relationships, no matter how stable, involve emotional exchanges. These exchanges take up cognitive space. Shared responsibilities bring interruption. Small conversations delay re-entry into the task. That back and forth drains attention. It forces the brain to switch gears, which slows progress. Being single removes this extra layer of friction. You are able to work through longer blocks of time without being pulled out of your focus. This uninterrupted effort leads to mastery. The Stoics trained their minds through constant review. They did not allow attention to wander without notice. They asked whether their current actions served their highest aim. They measured the worth of what they were doing against what was necessary. They used writing, silence, and structure to preserve focus. They were not trying to control the world. They were trying to control how much of their mind remained in the present moment. Living single helps reinforce this control. When your time is shaped by one voice, your own, your ability to stay with a task becomes stronger. The modern world introduces constant distraction. Messages, requests, opinions, and interruptions flood attention. You do not need more stimulation. You need boundaries that protect focus. Single life makes this easier. It removes the emotional layer that often breaks mental rhythm. You do not spend your day reacting to another person's energy. You are free to direct that energy back into your system of work and reflection. Distraction also shows up in subtle forms. It is not always loud or visible. Even in silence, your attention can drift. The mind may replay a recent disagreement. It may shift toward a memory that produces emotion. It may begin solving problems that have not yet appeared. It may create imagined dialogue or revisit unresolved decisions. These shifts happen without intention. They appear as thoughts, but they carry emotion. That emotion disrupts focus. These invisible distractions weaken your hold on the present. You are no longer engaged with the task. You are pulled into a private story, a question, or a memory. The shift feels small, but it reduces your effectiveness. Each break in focus requires effort to return. If these breaks happen often, your rhythm weakens. The work becomes slower. The output becomes inconsistent. The mind loses momentum. Attention, once scattered, takes time to rebuild. The Stoic learns to observe this drift without frustration. They do not attack the mind, they train it. When attention moves away, they bring it back. This act of return is a central part of the discipline. It is not a failure, it is a practice. Each return to focus strengthens the muscle of attention. Each moment of redirection improves the connection between thought and action. This habit becomes sharper when you live without emotional clutter. Living alone gives you space to observe your thoughts. You are not absorbing the emotional state of another person. You are not holding conversations that change your mood. You are not reprocessing conflict while trying to stay present. Your environment supports clarity. You begin to track your internal cycles. You learn the times of day when focus is strong. You notice the patterns that break your attention. You see which emotions lead to distraction. You learn how long it takes to recover from each type of mental interruption. You begin to understand how attention functions under pressure. You begin to respect silence as a condition for mental strength. You no longer need to force focus. You create conditions that allow it to form naturally. These conditions include solitude, repetition, and structure. You design your environment to reduce noise. You organize your day to allow longer sessions of undivided thought. You protect your energy by refusing optional interruption. Tracking your attention becomes part of your system. You write down each moment your mind breaks contact with the task. You log the source. You identify whether it came from internal tension or external interference. You review this log daily. You analyze the patterns. You begin to adjust your environment to reduce repeat triggers. You refine your process until focus becomes your default state. This is a deliberate practice. It requires no complex tools. It requires presence, reflection, and structure. Set boundaries around your attention. These are not rules for others. These are standards for yourself. Decide when the day begins and when it ends. Decide how long a task deserves your full presence. Decide how you will respond to distraction. Choose a short action that signals return, writing one sentence, standing up, closing your eyes, or resetting your posture. Attach that action to every redirection. Let that become a form of mental reset. Repeat this practice without judgment. Distraction will happen. Drift is part of the mind's movement. The goal is not silence. The goal is consistency. You build it by returning. You train the mind to obey direction. Each return becomes a lesson. Each session becomes a step in deeper clarity. Let solitude become your training ground. Use it to develop steadiness. Use it to remove what weakens your discipline. Let quiet become the environment where focus matures. This is how a Stoic uses isolation, not to escape, but to refine. You are not removing all noise from the world. You are building the strength to remain focused within it. Chapter 6. Mastery through isolation. Skill, discipline, and insight are all deepened through repetition. Repetition is only possible through stability. Without long blocks of undisturbed time, the kind required to immerse in a subject, skill weakens. Momentum is lost. Growth slows. Relationships, while meaningful, introduce complexity that makes stability harder to maintain. Even peaceful relationships require availability. That availability must be taken from somewhere. Most often, it is taken from your work, your training, or your reflection. When you live alone, you control the rhythm of your time. You choose when to start, when to stop, and when to push through resistance. You are not required to adjust to another schedule. You do not split your focus to accommodate someone else's priorities. You do not delay your practice to resolve miscommunication. This autonomy gives you the foundation to develop mastery. You return to your practice repeatedly without disruption. Each session builds on the last. Each cycle becomes part of a rhythm. This rhythm strengthens focus. It allows for deeper immersion. Immersion is essential for mastery. The mind requires a clean stretch of time to sink into a subject fully. It cannot do this when emotional conflict interrupts your focus. It cannot do this when your environment demands constant redirection. Small shifts, someone speaking, a request for attention, or the presence of unresolved tension, can pull your mind away from its task. The Stoics structured their days to serve reason. They trained their attention through solitude and contemplation. They reduced noise to preserve clarity. They believed that external stillness supported internal refinement. Mastery was not separate from life. It was a byproduct of how they lived, what they removed, and how they protected their direction. When you are not dividing your attention, your learning accelerates. You begin to see patterns more clearly. You feel fewer disruptions to your schedule. You work longer without mental fatigue. You identify weaknesses and correct them quickly. You test ideas and adapt without needing to explain or justify your choices. You are not interrupted by shifting moods. You are not delayed by relational explanations. Your pace is steady because it is set by your own decisions. That consistency is difficult to replicate in shared life. Even shared goals introduce discussion. Even aligned values require negotiation. These delays break immersion. They weaken rhythm. They dilute momentum. The single life allows for strict control over input. You decide what enters your space. You decide when to allow conversation, stimulation, or sound. You determine the level of energy in the room. You design the rhythm of the day. You are not pulled into another person's stress, urgency, or restlessness. You do not have to shift your mindset to match someone else's. You set the atmosphere that supports deep work. You can make the environment quiet, structured, and slow. You can repeat this day after day. You create repetition that leads to mastery. Mastery is not a reward given for effort. It is a condition of living. It is the result of alignment between values, time, and structure. It is the steady improvement of a skill or quality through long focus, uninterrupted thought, and repeated motion. It is made possible by a system that removes unnecessary friction. Solitude is that system. Simplicity is the structure. When the distractions are removed, your full attention becomes available. The Stoic uses isolation to refine the internal world. They do this so they can engage the external world with more precision. Precision comes from preparation. Preparation comes from repetition. Repetition requires stillness. Build your days around one central aim. Let that aim shape your habits. Eliminate what does not serve it. Limit access to your time. Avoid filling the day with requests or obligations that weaken your direction. Set your schedule to repeat tasks that matter. Do them even when progress feels slow. Use the same tools. Refine the same motions. Track your input. Track your energy. Review your results weekly. Look for trends that show improvement or decay. Make adjustments based on what advances your goal. Do not change your process for novelty. Change it only for effectiveness. Keep your process quiet. Let it grow in silence. Let your structure guide you. Let your repetitions carve depth into the skill. Let your focus create a baseline of strength that you can depend on. Mastery does not require perfection. It requires uninterrupted practice. It requires steady contact with the same task, guided by values and protected by structure. You earn that contact by simplifying your life. You maintain it by respecting your energy. This is the Stoic way: reduction of interference, repetition of effort, alignment with purpose. In solitude, your skill sharpens. In simplicity, your results stabilize. In repetition, your character is formed. Chapter 7. The Strength of Self-Reliance. Living single fosters self-reliance. You face each challenge directly. You manage your responsibilities without emotional backup. This trains you to be decisive. You evaluate problems with clarity. You make choices from principle. You are not waiting for agreement or emotional support before acting. You move forward because the choice aligns with reason. The Stoic values this clarity. They seek to rely on internal stability, not external comfort. When you rely on yourself, you sharpen your judgment. You begin to see what truly matters. You become less reactive. You build a calm, steady presence. You do not shift with praise or criticism. You learn to stand still in pressure. This stillness is built through direct experience. Each task you complete alone adds weight to your confidence. Each situation you handle without deflection adds strength to your character. Self-reliance also strengthens your relationship with time. You stop outsourcing your urgency. You stop waiting for someone else to push you forward. You learn how to create momentum from within. You take full responsibility for your schedule, your growth, and your effort. This responsibility is not a burden. It is a path to freedom. You earn freedom by managing yourself with discipline. The Stoics viewed life as a series of tests. Each test revealed the current state of your reason. A small inconvenience, a delayed result, a harsh word. All of these offer an opportunity to measure your response. When you respond with patience, thought, and consistency, you demonstrate control. You show that your actions come from principle. When you respond with frustration, impulse, or avoidance, you reveal the areas where your mind still lacks discipline. These tests happen daily. They are found in your habits, your reactions, and your smallest decisions. When you are single, these tests fall squarely on your shoulders. There is no one to soften them. There is no one to step in, explain your frustration, or correct your course. You meet each challenge directly. You hold responsibility without a buffer. This creates pressure. That pressure reveals your capacity. It shows what you have trained and what you have ignored. This pressure is not a punishment. It is a form of sharpening. It strengthens the mental framework that supports self-reliance. Living alone gives you full access to your reactions. You see your patterns without interference. You know when you delay action. You know when you seek comfort instead of clarity. Without someone else to manage your discomfort or confirm your emotions, you face yourself honestly. This directness is a gift. It trains honesty. It strengthens the foundation on which your self-respect is built. To grow in self-reliance, begin by watching how you make decisions. Ask if you are waiting for permission. Ask if your choices depend on being seen or praised. Then shift. Begin replacing those gaps with action. When you want to do something, act. When doubt appears, test the decision through reason. If it aligns with your values, proceed. If it does not, stop. Track your consistency. Write down what you said you would do and whether you did it. Keep a small record. Use it to hold yourself accountable. The Stoic way is built on this inner consistency. You cannot fake it. You build it slowly, through action. You build it by simplifying your life, clarifying your values, and aligning your behavior to match. In single life, this process is less disturbed. There are fewer distractions. There is more room for honest inventory. There is more time to make your actions deliberate. Use solitude wisely. Create a schedule that reflects your values. Let each hour have a purpose. Let each task support the larger structure of your life. Limit passive entertainment that clouds judgment and reduces focus. Cut down on content that keeps your attention scattered. Choose what sharpens your mind, not what dulls it. Reduce dependencies that limit your ability to make clean decisions. These include emotional dependencies, social habits, or routines that drain your energy without giving clarity in return. Review your behavior daily. Ask whether your actions align with your stated priorities. Look for gaps between what you said and what you did. Adjust your approach when you notice drift. Do not cover the drift with justification. Address it directly. Simplify your process. Remove steps that create confusion. Keep what adds strength. Let your routines evolve in a direction that matches your values. Keep your evaluations objective. Treat errors as feedback. Let failure teach you how to tighten your discipline. Study your failures without shame. Shame clouds the lesson. Look at what happened. Find the break in reasoning or the point of weakness. Write it down. Plan your correction. Use mistakes as part of your development. Do not discard them or bury them. Study them as you would study an opponent, calmly, precisely. Learn their patterns so you can avoid them in the future. Success comes from this clarity. It is built on the back of repeated, honest assessment. Reinforce what is working. Do not change your system for novelty. If a habit strengthens you, repeat it. If a structure produces focus, protect it. Return to what gives results. Anchor your day around a few key disciplines. Let those disciplines grow deeper rather than wider. You do not need constant variety. You need reliability. That reliability is built by repeating what serves your goal. Let your process stabilize before you attempt to upgrade it. Accept that this work has no finish line. You are not completing a program. You are building a way of life. There is no final reward for discipline. The reward is the clarity it brings. The reward is the self-trust that develops. The reward is the absence of internal conflict. You stop fighting yourself. You stop doubting your steps. You live in line with what you believe, and that alignment becomes its own strength. Self-reliance is the result of this consistent effort. It is not granted by experience alone. It is earned through repeated decisions. It grows each time you act without hesitation. It strengthens each time you follow through without needing approval. It expands each time you make a decision and take full responsibility for the result. It is confirmed in silence. It is confirmed when no one is watching. You build it in quiet, consistent work that aligns with your principles. The single life gives you full space to grow this strength. You are not pulled into constant emotional compromise. You are not managing another person's schedule, emotion, or expectations. Your time is your own. Your priorities are not reshaped to avoid tension. Your energy is not diffused across emotional demands. You can structure your day around clear objectives. You can allocate your energy toward the actions that matter most. You are free to allocate your strength toward discipline. You are free to pursue knowledge without interruption. You are free to sit with difficulty until you understand it. You are free to make choices that reflect your long-term goals without emotional detours. You are free to act without confusion. You are free to design a structure that reflects who you are and who you aim to become. That clarity is power. It is not dramatic or loud. It is quiet, stable, and direct. That freedom becomes the foundation. It becomes the place from which order is built. From it grows a structure that holds your life together under pressure. From that structure, you build skill. From skill, you develop trust in your own hands. That trust creates calm. That calm becomes your advantage. That advantage grows into presence. Presence becomes influence. And from there, the Stoic moves forward, not carried by emotion, not shaken by praise or blame, but guided by internal alignment. The Stoic way is the way of clear structure. It is the way of sharp reason. It is the way of calm action, repeated daily. In single life, this path is unobstructed. You walk it without interference. You build strength from solitude. You build focus from silence. You build character from disciplined effort. This is the power of staying single with purpose. This is the strength of living as your own foundation.